working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Mariana Sebastian and welcome to ASEAN in Focus. On tonight's headlines. Philippine National Police Chief General Rodolfo Azurin Jr. said they are not setting aside foul play over the death of inmate Cristito Villamor, the alleged middleman in the killing of veteran broadcaster Percival Mabasa, also known as Percy Lapid.
Trumabaho kay Villamor.
Myanmar military airstrikes when a concert held by a major ethnic rebel group killed around 50 people and wounded 70, the rebels said on Monday. The Philippines and Japan are looking to further expand defense relations. And Labor Secretary Benvenido E. Laguesma announced that the Philippines is hosting the 27th ASEAN Labor Ministers meeting and related meetings in Manila this week. First in our news, Philippine National Police Chief General Rodolfo Azurin Jr. on Monday said they are not setting aside foul play over the death of inmate Cristito Villamor, the alleged middleman in the killing of veteran broadcaster Percival Mabasa, also known as Percy Lapid. Take a look.
So, kaya sabi ko nga nakakapagtaka na nagkaroon ng initial na coordination and yet biglang may nangyaring hindi kanais-nais. Kaya, siyempre, on the part of the PNP, sayang nanghihinayang kami doon sa effort ng mga investigator on case namin, but nangyari na yan eh. So we have to continue our investigation. Marami pa namang mga ano yan eh, pwedeng gawin ng ating PNP to determine makaabot kung sino man yung mastermind. It's too much of an incident, diba? It's an unfortunate incident, but it's a questionable. The timing is questionable.
Most probably, sir. How about, sir, yung possibility na may ibang tao nakasabot sa bilibid na trumabaho kay Villamor? Is that possible, sir?
Posible rin eh. Posible rin na kanyon eh. Kasi sabi ko nga, kasi nung una yung report nga na lumalabas ay parang nabangungot, di ba? Sabi ko, paano ka mababangungot ng tanghaling tapat, di ba? Because when I was a captain, I had been entering the New Bilibid prison. At nakita ko kung anong situation doon eh, na hindi ka pwedeng makakatulog ng tanghali kasi nga napakasikip. So kung yun ang kasi yun ang unang lumabas na report eh, na bangungot, di ba? Oo, yun ang unang lumabas na report na nabasa ko sa ano. So sabi ko, paano kang mababangungot sa tanghaling tapat na hindi ka nga makatulog sa init doon eh, sa pagkamatay ni Percy? Because just yesterday pagdating ko, I was briefed na since 2021 there are 600 na na mga posting si Percy na mga iba-ibang issue, and out of the 600 plus na mga tinalakay po niya sa programa niya, there are almost 160 personalities more or less na different personalities, mga politiko, mga military, mga pulis, halo-halo. So ito mga tinitingnan natin na mga probable na mga baka may kinalaman doon sa pagkamatay ni Percy. 160 na mga personalities doon na mga nakasama doon sa mga issues na doon sa programa ni Sir Percy Lapid, ay lahat po yun ay person of interest. So titingnan po natin kung again, we need really to establish yung motive na that led to the killing of Sir Percy Mabasa.
A day after Escorial surrendered on October 17, Villamor died inside his detention facility at the NBP in Muntinlupa City. An initial medical legal report by the National Bureau of Investigation dated October 20 showed issues in Villamore's heart and that there were no apparent signs of external physical injury in his body. Azarin, however, said they will wait for the investigation by the Department of Justice. Myanmar military airstrikes on a concert held by a major ethnic rebel group killed around 50 people and wounded 70, the rebels said on Monday. A number of Myanmar's myriad ethnic rebel groups have come out in support of anti-coup fighters since last year's putsch, offering shelter and training while themselves clashing with the junta. Around 8:40 p.m. Sunday, 2 Myanmar military jets attacked a ceremony the Kachin Independence Army, or the KIA, was holding, according to its spokesman Colonel Nao Bu. The U.S. Embassy in Yangon said it was following reports of a military airstrike targeting a Kachin gathering, resulting in the deaths of a large number of civilians. In September, at least 11 school children died in a military strike on a Myanmar village in northern Sagaing region. The junta said it had sent troops in helicopters to let Yet Kony after receiving a tip off that fighters from the KIA and a local anti-coup militia were moving weapons. More than 2,300 people have been killed in the military's crackdown on dissent since the coup and over 15,000 arrested, according to a local monitoring group. The junta blames anti-coup fighters for the deaths of almost 3,900 civilians. When hundreds of thousands of Rohingya Muslims fled a brutal military crackdown in Myanmar in August 2017, Bangladesh opened its border and tens of thousands of locals rushed to help the persecuted minority with food, medicine, and cash. But public attitudes in Bangladesh have hardened after years of fruitless efforts to negotiate a safe return for the Rohingyas, with media outlets and politicians regularly condemning refugees as drug runners and terror threats. Well, let's watch this.
স্থানীয় আমাদের যে জনগোষ্ঠী আছে হুশ কমিউনিটি বলে যাদেরকে, তাদের সাথেও বিভিন্ন বিরোধে জড়িয়ে পড়তেছে। তারা আমাদের স্থানীয় শ্রমবাজার দখল করতেছে, ক্যাম্প থেকে পালিয়ে বিভিন্নভাবে দেশে বিদেশে যাওয়ার জন্য পায়তারা করতেছে। ইতিমধ্যে সেই কারণে বিভিন্ন পাসপোর্ট করতে গিয়ে জন্ম নিবন্ধন করতে অনেকে গ্রেপ্তার হয়েছে। তাদের এই সমস্ত অবৈধ কর্মকাণ্ডের কারণে আমাদের এলাকাটা তেমন একটা শান্তিতে নাই। আমরা হোস্ট কমিটির মানুষগুলা যারা আছি আমরা শঙ্কিত অবস্থায় আছি।
বর্ষায় ফুল এখন রোহিঙ্গা আরে বহুত আইসে ৯২ তো আইসে নীলাফা করতে এখন দেখো করতে কথা নয় কেন সারা এলাকা
মানে লোকাল মিডিয়া কলে আছে মানে রোহিঙ্গা আছে খারাপ বলে হয়ে যাচ্ছে গিয়া বেগুলো দেড়ে আর এখন রোহিঙ্গা এখন বেগুন খারাপ দেন হাত হাঙ্গ ৫টা এখন ২১ মান কিছু কিছু মানুষের হার আছে মানে আছে লোকাল মিডিয়া কলে আছে রোহিঙ্গা বেগুন খারাপ এন হতে আসলে যাচ্ছে আর বেগুন খারাপ দেন আর তো হতে বেশি দুঃখিত আইয়ে পয়সা দিয়ে লাগে কিয়া কিছু আর বেগুন খারাপ আর বেগুন আছে রোহিঙ্গা এর কিছু কিছু মানুষ খারাপ হতে যাচ্ছে বেগুন আছে বন্ধ হয়ে যাবে আসলে যাচ্ছে রোহিঙ্গা বেগুন খারাপ দেন। জুলুম সহ্য করি না বাড়ি বাড়ি এটা এবার যদি জুলুমের টাকা পড়তে থাকলে আর লাভ বেশি কি হয়ে যার লস হয়ে যার গোস আরে লস আমার বিলকুল কি করতে না তাই তো না
Myanmar was added on Friday to a global financial blacklist, while Russia was sidelined by the international money laundering watchdog FATF. The move by the Financial Action Task Force put Myanmar alongside North Korea and Iran as outcasts of the global financial system, citing a continued lack of progress and the fact that the majority of the actions Myanmar had promised to take had not been completed more than a year after the deadline. The FATF put the country on the so-called blacklist. The Paris-based FATF also further cut back Russia's role in the organization due to its invasion of Ukraine. Nicaragua and Pakistan were taken off the FATF's gray list of countries subject to increased monitoring of financial transactions. 24 countries remain on the gray list. The Philippines has reaffirmed its commitment to strengthen its partnership with the member countries of the United Nations to realize national and collective aspiration of peace, security, and development for all peoples. In a statement Monday, Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo said the Philippines plays a constructive role in the UN as a bridge builder and champion of vulnerable groups, children and migrants in developing countries' interests. Take a look.
As President Ferdinand R. Marcos stated recently at the United Nations General Assembly, we need the United Nations to continue to work, and we, the Philippines, are determined to be part of that solution. Throughout the years, the Philippines has been an active member and staunch advocate for the values and ideals of the United Nations. Today, the Philippines plays a constructive role in the United Nations as a bridge builder and champion of vulnerable groups such as children and migrants and developing countries' interests. The many challenges that confront the world community today present opportunities to forge stronger international cooperation to realize the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Against this backdrop, the Philippines reaffirms its commitment to uphold the principles upon which the United Nations was founded, forging cordial ties with the members of the community of nations and strengthening partnerships to realize our national and collective aspiration of peace, security, and development for all peoples.
The Philippines is one of the 51 countries that created the UN in 1945, desiring to overcome conflict, crisis, and catastrophe after World War II. It continues to build a more peaceful, united, and prosperous world with other member countries amid climate change and food insecurity aggravated by the COVID-19 pandemic and increasing geopolitical conflicts and tensions. An expert from the Asian Development Bank, or ADB, Francesca Ricciardi, a senior environment specialist, sustainable development and climate change department, said the world is witnessing a planetary biodiversity crisis, with species being lost at an unprecedented rate in modern times. He said the major drivers of biodiversity loss are all byproducts of economic growth. Ricciardi said economic growth is needed to overcome poverty and achieve prosperity targets. That same growth is responsible for potentially irreparable damage to biodiversity and to the ecosystem services, such as pollination for crops or pest control, for example, it provides to humanity. These are indispensable ingredients for economic growth. He added that there is no complete solution to this dilemma. The right pathway may be rethinking our global socioeconomic model, and this will take time, effort, and sacrifice. He said there are a few urgent steps in the right direction that need to be considered. These include rethinking how we measure wealth and economic prosperity. He said economists and media professionals need to promote other indices of wealth that include natural and social capital, such as the green GDP, the Human Development Index, the Index of Sustainable Economic Welfare, and the Genuine Progress Indicator, for example. The ADB expert said increasing protected areas and making nature-positive investments as a means to improve a country or region's natural capital. The liquefied natural gas or LNG terminal of Atlantic Gulf Pacific International Holdings or AGP will start to deliver gas by March next year, possibly the first among the LNG players to start commercial operation. AGNP said Monday it has completed the conversion of the 137,512 cubic meter LNG carrier called ISH into a floating storage unit or FSU, which is now ready to be docked at AGNP's Philippines LNG Import Terminal or the PHLNG in Batangas. The ISH is a central component of the first PHLNG. Karthik Satyamurthy, president of AGP Terminals and Logistics, said the construction for 2 onshore tanks as part of PHLNG's second phase has already started and will be integrated as part of the main terminal in 2024, ensuring high availability and reliability of natural gas for our customers. AGNP said the floating storage unit is part of the combined onshore import terminal that will have an initial capacity of 5 million tons per annum. The hybrid Philippines LNG import terminal, meanwhile, is designed to provide its customers with resiliency of supply and high availability even during storms. Despite strong headwinds the global economy is facing, French companies remain confident in investing in the Philippines, French ambassador to the Philippines, Michel Bocaz, said. In a press conference Monday, Bocaz said the visit of the French business delegation here reflects the optimism of French investors in the Philippine economy, despite the uncontrollable factors happening globally that affect economies. But as you see, there are a large group of companies coming and that shows optimism in their part in continuing to develop their business, particularly in the region. The Philippines has a very good outlook in the economic growth, I think. The Philippines is a growth champion of the ASEAN region, which itself is the champion in the world, she said. Bocaz cited sectors which French businesses are interested to invest in the country, including construction, energy, banking, maritime, and innovation, among others. The French envoy added that with the recent enactment of laws, such as the amendments to the Public Service Act, Foreign Investment Act, and the Retail Trade Liberalization Act, the Philippine government is sending a very good message to foreign investors and is making the country more attractive for investments. About 25 French companies are currently in Manila for a business delegation led by the Movement of the Enterprises of France, which is the largest employer federation in France. Labor Secretary Benvenido E. Laguesma announced that the Philippines is hosting the 27th ASEAN Labor Ministers meeting and related meetings in Manila this week. Expected to attend the meetings from October 25 to 29 are labor ministers and senior labor officials from the 10 member states of ASEAN: Brunei Darussalam, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, and the Philippines. The labor officials will also hold meetings with ASEAN Plus 3 dialogue partners, China, Japan, and South Korea. This year's meetings mark a return to the face-to-face format and will focus on the theme of moving beyond the pandemic and further promoting digitalized, inclusive, and sustainable recovery and growth for workers. Included in the agenda of the meetings is the review of the progress of various regional programs on skills development, digitalization, climate change, and green jobs, industrial relations, and the changing world of work, migration, and social protection. Laguesma said the meetings will also highlight the need for more effective regional responses to unemployment, especially in rural communities, rising food prices, and inflation, which are now among the biggest threats to workers' welfare and well-being in the region. The Philippines and Japan are looking to further expand defense relations. This was among the topics discussed during the two nations' 9th military-to-military dialogue on October 21 in Manila, 3 years after its last iteration. The dialogue was co-chaired by Department of National Defense, Assistant Secretary for Strategic Assessments and International Affairs Henry Robinson Jr., and Japan's Ministry of Defense Director for General for International Affairs Miura Jun. Both sides exchanged views on regional security challenges, discussed respective updates on defense policies, and reviewed the overall progress of Philippines-Japan defense cooperation. On regional security challenges, Robinson shared the DND's perspective on the South China Sea or West Philippine Sea, while Miura shared security updates on the East China Sea and the Korean Peninsula. Both officials also touched on the security situation in the Euro-Atlantic. Foreign participants at a high-profile financial summit in Hong Kong next month would be able to skip isolation and leave via appropriate flight arrangement if they catch COVID, a top health official said on Friday. The comments followed media reports that attendees, expected to include top executives from some of the world's most powerful financial institutions, would be allowed to leave on private jets if they test positive for the coronavirus. Hong Kong is aiming to reassert its position as a global financial hub with the summit organized by the city's central bank after being effectively cut off because of the strict COVID policies, especially for international travelers. If a summit participant tests positive for the coronavirus, we will adopt the same isolation arrangement as with other inbound visitors. Permanent Secretary for Health Thomas Chan told a press conference when asked if any rules will be relaxed for the event. But at the same time, we will also provide facilitation should there be appropriate flight arrangements for leaving Hong Kong. Commercial airlines are restricted from transporting virus-positive passengers to and from Hong Kong. Bloomberg News had reported Thursday that the Hong Kong government was considering allowing participants at the two-day summit to leave by private jet if they test positive. Hong Kong scrapped mandatory hotel quarantine for travelers last month as warnings grew that the financial hub was suffering brain drain and loss of business. Hong Kong has had a difficult 3 years with a sweeping crackdown on political freedoms and the imposition of some of the world's strictest coronavirus pandemic controls, which kept it isolated even as competitors such as Singapore reopened. Australia and Japan agreed to share sensitive intelligence and deepen defense cooperation Saturday, signing a security pact to counter China's military rise. Prime Ministers Fumio Kishida and Anthony Albanese inked the accord in the Western Australian city of Perth, revamping a dusty 15-year-old accord drafted when terrorism and weapons proliferation were the overriding concerns. Take a look.
Shared visit for an Indo-Pacific region that is peaceful, prosperous, resilient and free is why today we have signed the renewed joint declaration on security cooperation. Following our reciprocal access agreement in 2022, this landmark declaration sends a strong signal to the region of our strategic alignment.
Under the deal, the country's defense forces will train together in Northern Australia and expand and strengthen cooperation across defense, intelligence sharing, and a raft of other areas. Kishida said the agreement was a response to an increasingly harsh strategic environment without citing China or North Korea by name. Neither Australia nor Japan has the ranks of overseas intelligence operatives and the foreign informants needed to play in the major leagues of global espionage. Japan does not have a foreign spy agency equivalent to America's CIA, Britain's MI6, or Russia's FSB. Australia's ASIO is a fraction of the size of those organizations. But according to expert Bryce Wakefield, Australia and Japan have formidable signals and geospatial capabilities, electronic eavesdropping tools, and high-tech satellites that provide invaluable intelligence on adversaries. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida warns that Russia using nuclear weapons would be seen as an act of hostility against humanity. Speaking in Australia, Kishida said the 77-year period of no nuclear weapons use must not be ended. Take a look.
ロシアの核兵器による威嚇は国際社会の平和と安全に対する深刻な脅威であり、断じて受け入れることはできません。 広島及び長崎に原爆が投下されて77年間、核兵器が使用されていない歴史をないがしろにすることはあってはなりません。
Thousands of gaming enthusiasts walk around a Taiwanese park to hunt for Pokemon characters after the island lifts its COVID-19 restrictions and fully reopens its borders to international travelers. Take a look.
I flew all the way from New York just to be here to catch some Pokemon and be with my friends. I try to travel to each and every event that they have going on. Go to Japan. I'm obviously here in Taiwan. I will definitely be there in Singapore. I will go wherever it is because that's where all the people are at.
我那时候就想说要减肥嘛，然后就刚好就朋友就介绍说这个软体，然后就跟着一起走路，边走边抓宝。
As my usual habit, I'd like to end the day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind. Thank you for joining us. I'm Liana Sebastian from EBC Vietnam Bureau, reminding you to stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times.